I don't want to miss it. So, I've been digging through my notes. Anybody ever go to like a seminar or, pay a bunch of money to go someplace and listen to a bunch of experts talk? And anybody got like those notebooks full of the notes from those events? Anybody ever done that? And like, right? And then what? Okay, right? And then you're kind of sitting there going, wait a minute, but how many thousands of dollars and I traveled to where and I did what? And then what did I ever do with that? And Tracy, you're kind of laughing, but I mean, like, how many times have we done that? Yeah, you got it right there. Okay, so right. And I was thinking last year Richard did a presentation for us, basically telling us we probably forget more than we ever possibly ever knew, right? And he's got all those books on his shelf. Um, but I was working with a group last week, and I got reminded of something, it was so good. If I think it would help you guys out, and I'd like to kind of dig through this, and if you're aware of it, um, there's a book, and I don't even remember the book's name, but the author is Blair Warren. Okay, and in the book he says people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies.
Online persuasion, that's the name of the report.
Is that it? You've heard, yeah, right? Tyler, you got it, right?
Want to try that again?
I'll put it in the chat here.
Okay.
Okay.
One
That's
sentence
actually kind of a
persuasion.
scary statement.
Yeah, Tyler, go ahead. What is that from, Tyler?
One sentence persuasion.
That's it, right. And I was at an event with Perry Belcher a couple years ago, and he was laying all of his magic mojo on, and he dropped that thing, and I just thought to myself, okay, what does that do? When you guys read that, how does that hit for you guys?
Explains all the conspiracy theories floating around.
Step by step of how politics works right there.
I don't want to throw rocks.
That sounds very poetic.
Some things are worth throwing rocks at.
Hmm.
Well, and it causes to stop and think about if you want to get clients, then what do you want to help them to do? Do you want to be the one helping them to throw rocks? Or do you want to be the one helping them to pursue their dreams? And if so, then how do you do it? But really just be conscious about exactly what do you want to coach and how do you want to coach it?
Mm-hmm.
Throwing rocks doesn't necessarily mean that you injure another victim, though. Like maybe the person you're helping them throw rocks at is this weakened version of themselves that they've accepted. And you need to.
I don't know if it's just me, but when Tyler talks, I can barely hear him. I can hear everybody else, but Tyler's like almost like
Not
nothing.
better. Is my microphone too far away?
That sounds a little better. Not a lot better, a little better. Not criticizing, but
No, but it's important. If you can't hear me, then I'll shut up. So I was just saying that some things are worth throwing rocks at, Some things are worth throwing rocks at. There isn't always a victim in that case. Sometimes what you're throwing rocks at is an idea and not a person,
Mm-hmm. So what if we did work that backwards, okay? And for Elaine's benefit, okay? Um, let's talk, and it's interesting as we unpack that, because I think it's very powerful. The tendency would be to start with, people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams. Okay, been there, done that. We could probably spend a month on that. But what if we started from the other end? Help people throw rocks at their enemies. What does that mean? How can you apply, like Terry, like, when you're helping somebody with their nutrition, okay, how do you help them throw rocks at their enemies? If you help somebody, you know, um,
Give
you know,
up
I
first.
I just think, you know what I have coming up?
Mhm.
I am pretty close to my 50th high school reunion. So not just still a couple, 3 years away, but you know, I'm in the class of 1977, and I just, I'm outside of Tacoma, Washington. I'm now seeing the notifications looking for the class of 1974 for their 50th year reunion. I'm going, oh my gosh, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I went to my 10-year high school reunion and that was enough. I never went back. But I think, man, 50 years? I mean, who's still alive? I mean, and so it was kind of funny. The Facebook post that was out there, it was like, how many people were in that class? How many people they have found, how many people they found are no longer with us, right? And all of that kind of stuff. But, helping them throw rocks at their enemies. Like if I showed up at my 50th high school reunion, right? I don't want to physically throw rocks, but I want to walk into that room with a full head of hair, right? Not with a big gut on me, right? And with the bombshell babe on my arm, right? Does that make sense? Is that throwing rocks at my enemies? So
Yes.
and
Mhm.
and so if somebody was able to help me with any of those things, would I go, hey, sign me up? So think about it. I got till 1977 to get this all down, right? Right. And so, I mean, this gets me with the personal trainer at the gym, correct?
Mhm.
This all does that make sense? See what we're doing? We're helping them throw rocks at their enemies.
Well, Don, I do this all the time with my clients. I do litigation work, so the
Yeah.
attorneys hire me to help them find the rocks that they're going to throw at their opposition. And,
Yeah.
and I do this in the work that I do with the IRS. The IRS is our opposition, and we're trying to take the IRS down. So I do quite a bit. I spend quite a bit of my time helping people throw rocks at us.
Yeah. And to Elaine's point, she doesn't want to throw rocks, but I think, Tyler's been working out, okay, and he's been inspiring me. So, when he works out, it's like he's kind of throwing a rock at me because every time I go to the gym, I go, I'm not going to let Tyler, do better than me, right? Because I got a few years on him, but I mean, it's like we're going to go toe to toe on it, right? It's just like if he's going to post on social media that he's doing something, I want to be able to post. I mean, does it make sense? So is that throwing rocks at he's not my enemy. Does that make sense? But right, to see the rivalry there. I mean, we're two guys, we got testosterone going. Come on, right,
I'm
Tyler? I
throwing
mean,
rocks at your ego there, Donald. Come on, man. You just confessed.
yeah. It's just right. And so when you're engaging with the marketplace, right? Think about it from that perspective. And it doesn't have to be a big boulder rock that's sharp edge, right? It can be a Nerf ball, but it's still you're throwing something. Does that make sense? You get it? It's like it's like the poses that you get. I love your pictures on social media because does that make sense? Do you see how you're kind of throwing rocks when you do that? It's like here I am posing on the stairs, right? Does that make sense? Is this helping everybody? See what we're doing? We're kind of pulling that back. What am I missing on this, Richard?
Yeah, again, I'm not sure if you want to hear my this. I've got the whole other side of the coin. Dan
I
Ariely
know,
just
really, I'm not
Ariely
shocked.
just wrote a book, Misbelief. You will affiliate anybody who, I don't want to say puncture, anybody who does those things, you will affiliate with. That does not have positive connotations for me. That's how people go down rabbit holes and conspiracy theories and calling people names. In politics today, it's not I disagree with you. It's you're woke, you're a dirty rotten, you're liberal, throw rocks. Now you're trying to make this into a positive. God bless you. You're turning this around to how can I get on the game of throwing rocks and use that for marketing? Well, I think you're wonderful for doing that, and I'm listening because I will learn from you.
But I wanted to work because I want to flip it up to the top side and talk about the dream part of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want this to be the 800-pound gorilla sitting at the end.
Yeah, you want to get through that, right?
I want to get through this hardest part first. And thank you, Elaine, for shouting it out because it's like, no, right? I want to succeed, but not that, right?
Well, you know, you could, in the way you're talking about, you could say those dirty, rotten, skinny people, you know.
One of my early mentors, he used to say success is revenge.
Yeah, there you go.
That was
Yeah.
his moniker, you know, and he was he was the kind of guy that prior to being successful in business, you know, he'd rather, you know, his success was let's just get in a fight, right? And that's how he had kind of proved himself. But then he kind of figured out how to become successful in business.
That's
And
like
he
guerrilla
went,
marketing, right?
yeah, and he decided to do that. I mean, back in the 80s, he had achieved, you know, a few million, which back then was a crazy money, right? And I remember he bought a limousine, right? That was and Cadillacs were a big thing. I had a Cadillac in the 80s, like because that was like the thing to have. Now it's like, why would you drive a Cadillac? Now I got a Tom appreciates this. I got a big Ram pickup. You know what I mean? I don't got a Cadillac. I drive a house down the street, but he bought a limousine and hired a limousine driver. So Art worked for him for a number of years as his limousine driver. And his girls, you know, were like in grade school at that time. And he would drive them to school in the limousine, right? So he didn't just own a limousine. He had a limousine and he had the driver that had the limousine outfit. And they would go through the drive-throughs in the limousine and everything like that, right? And it was just his way, and he was well known in the community, right? He was well known for being the guy that had, you know, beat up a number of people in bars in past years and been the scuffer out there to actually succeeding in business. And he didn't have to say anything. He just drove around town in that limousine. Does that make sense? Success is revenge.
And as
Maisie,
you
you've
say
been so
that,
polite with
Donald,
your what?
Yeah.
as you say that, Donald, just before you switch gears, like revenge success is the greatest revenge. I sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of skincare products.
Mhm.
And what we learned was that one of the greatest motivators, primarily in the older women, was they wanted to spite their ex, is why they wanted to look younger and more beautiful. Huge motivator.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's too funny.
But that's it, isn't it? That's throwing rocks.
I just want to say, to me, the enemy for all of us, we all have these like inner demons, you know, the thing that says, oh, you can't do this, you know what I mean? Or, oh, you're not good enough, you know, the normal ones.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great enemy to totally annihilate and throw rocks at, which
Yeah.
is really what you're doing about, you know, like getting in shape. And I would really encourage everyone here to go to their high school reunions. And the second part of my statement will be is if you have any influence at all over what happens at the reunion, to make sure you have music from your time. Okay. And I'll just add one quick thing. My class does reunions not only every 5 years, but on the special birthday year. So like when everybody turned 50, we had a reunion, a 50th birthday party. So we've had a lot of reunions. Okay. And this last one, I danced with someone's husband, not realizing at all that he had Alzheimer's. And he got up and she started crying. And I looked at her. She was at the table and I didn't understand what was really going on. But he was dancing with me. And we were having a grand old time. And she was crying because he was the husband, the man she had married. And the music made such a difference. So anyway, that's that. So inner demons, and make sure you go to your reunions and make sure they have the music from your time.
Love it. Yeah. Excellent. Ideas?
I think of also as um the rocks as our own limiting beliefs that get in our way of our success. So if we deal with those, we can become really unstoppable, right?
Mhm. Well, okay, so so let's back that up. If somebody was willing to work with you and help you on that, that's very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, in your, engagement with the marketplace, you're helping them with that, that's going to resonate.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Exactly.
If it sells skincare, I mean, come on, right? The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie.
Hey, Donald, this might be an age point of view, but when I first you said it and I read it, I thought, oh yeah. And now I'm thinking about it. I'm really working at this stage in my life to get beyond this dualistic sort of thinking that each of these things is either or. And and yeah, I think back and I have some people that I would call enemies. And I'm working today to understand why is it that I had a conflict with them, or what was it? What was the issue going on? And that might not be anyone else's jam, but this this is feeling more and more shallow to me as I read it. And I that doesn't mean it isn't good marketing,
Right, right.
but I just have to be honest. It's feeling
Yeah.
more and more shallow. Like I understand it, and it got my attention initially, and now as I'm thinking, it's like, yeah, not so much.
And I'm kind of with you on that as far as even, you talk about the guy who bought the limousine and success is the best form of revenge. When you're in that mindset, you're giving the power to the other person because you're responding to what you think they think. And again, maybe good marketing, but just for me personally, as a coach, it's like, I'm not about helping people build up the areas where they are giving their power to somebody else. And it's like, so success is for you. It's not to get revenge on somebody else. And success is what you determine success to be, whatever society says or whatever. And so to me, it's like, again, I kind of like, okay, I see what you're saying with the statement, but the whole, even the idea, like Richard said, you're trying to put a good spin on it. And I can kind of get that angle, but also too, it's like it's just coming from a negative place instead of coming from a positive place. And I feel like drawing toward with positive is just a much more powerful place to be. So that's just kind of.
Mhm. Now, also remember too, we sell them what they want and give them what they need, right? But we can't help them, Tracy, until we hook them with their base animal instinct at the beginning, right? It's like, it's interesting when my granddaughter comes over, because I got this big yard, right, and all these trails. I live out in the woods, right? And in the bad weather, we play inside. So we got the Duplos and the Brio track and stuff like that. But I mean, when the weather's not, I'm outside with her. I mean, let's get in nature. So what does this little girl do? I mean, the first thing that she hunts for is a stick and a rock. She's got a stick in one hand and a rock, right? It's like, nah, I'm just, this is my granddaughter. It's like, girls are, what's that saying? Boys are puppy dog. What's this? Sugar and spice, and girls are sugar and spice and everything nice, and boys are
Nips and snails and puppy dog tails.
yeah, there you go. Thank you, Tom. Right. So that natural tendency of that humanity to pick up the rock, right, and pick up the stick, it's just like she hunts for it, and she'll dig for the rock she wants, and she wants a rock that she can, and she'll puts down a small rock to pick up. She'll pick up the biggest rock she can pick up, right? So there's that natural human tendency, I think, to pick up the rock, and probably that's what saved us as a species in the beginning, is that natural tendency to throw rocks. I don't know. So let's utilize it to the good.
It, yeah, I think a key element there is she's discovering for the first time what it feels like to have something heavy in your hand, heavier than what you normally have, and heaving it against something, you know, maybe at a squirrel, you can guide her there. But you know, the thing that came to me when this first came up, and I want to thank Richard for this, is I'm thinking, what's his purpose in saying this? And I'd have to read the book maybe, but I think I can come up with purposes that would be behind this, but I'm really curious if his is just, this is a way to get people to pay attention to what you want to say, or is this really his deep philosophical foundation?
There's another book. I think, Richard, you're the one that tagged me on this recently because I picked it up. Win Bigly by
Yeah, that's a great one. Oh God. Scott, the
Scott somebody.
Adam, the Dilbert guy.
Yeah. And part of the premise in there, it's like, is to understand their identity and amplify it. Right. And so when we're coming down to finding, what are people's demons? Who are their enemies? And we've all got them. Okay. How do they identify? Richard was talking about, people that put labels, the political labels and stuff like that, the enemies. I mean, but let's face it, people identify that. If you belong to a group, a service organization, a church. And I was talking with a gentleman last night, we in our choir program, and because I had my notebook out of the choir practice last night, right, in between things, and so working with the sopranos, I'm over in the bass section, and I'm kind of saying, because I'm recognizing the group aspect of it, and groups can be positive and groups can be negative. And I was talking with a gentleman next to me, and and we were kind of commiserating about some negative groups that we had been in, almost like cults, and that they might as well have been, right? But I said, you understand choir can be a cult? And we just kind of look, I just said, stop for a moment, and like any group that you're in, right, it can be good or bad. And sometimes here we are, I'm spending another Wednesday night at choir practice just because they said it's on my schedule. And I almost, if I don't go, I'm going to feel like I'm shunned from the community. And so am I really going to choir for me and for that? Or am I going because I'm afraid that, my wife's a director and I'd really get a double barrel, but it's like, why am I here? Right. And so that's true. Sometimes people buy into a political party and all of a sudden they get sucked up into all of that, without even paying attention to what it really is. Think about Nazi Germany. I mean, we all look at Nazi Germany like, well, that would never happen. Come on, give me a break. It happens over and over and over again. And that's not the first time it happened, right? And it's happened on different scales all over the place, right? So pay attention. So I think Elaine's point, yeah, I don't want to throw rocks, but let's be realistic here. Okay, people are going to throw rocks. Okay, how can we use that for good? So that, I think that's the wake-up call here.
For me, this is, I don't want to say struggled with it, but been aware of it since I took Evan's class. My process about aspirations, positive stuff, where you going,
Mm-hmm.
But in the marketing, it's find the dissatisfaction. Science shows that people respond more strongly to their dissatisfaction, their complaints, but it becomes, at some point, it becomes a bit of a moral decision.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say that people don't respond to their aspirations at all. It just said this complaint thing is stronger, but at some point there gets to be a bit of a moral dilemma. What are you going to choose to use? What are you going to choose to affiliate yourself with?
But what gets your attention first? Okay, because we can't help them unless we get their attention. It's like I have 10 things that you should never do when you go to the YMCA, because those 10 things could actually kill you.
But you don't think appealing. Okay, so your aspirations come in second place, not first place. You don't think you can build a business working with aspirations instead of complaints?
No. If I walk into a stadium and I say, here's 10 things you can do at the gym today to get better results. Or if I walk into the stadium and said, here are 10 things that you should absolutely not do at the gym because they can lead to sudden death. Which one is going to get you more focused and paying attention?
Okay, my question was by what percent? Is it twice as powerful, 3 times as powerful? If you went and say, here's the things you could do to look like Arnold, is nobody going to respond, or are people going to respond and so lightly and such a small percentage that it's not worth being positive? Or is it, we're talking about a 50% difference, 100% difference? What is it?
Okay,
I
so
don't think we're I
Yep.
think we're looking at these are not mutually exclusive options here, right? We're not
Mhm.
talking about only motivating by throwing rocks at enemies. We're talking about also throwing rocks at your enemies. Like part of the one sentence
Oh.
persuasion says inspire their dreams, right?
Yeah.
Encourage their dreams. The positive action is also there. Now, since it's not mutually exclusive, you don't have to choose between one or the other. So you can choose to encourage their dreams while also throwing rocks at the enemies that are trying to prevent them from reaching their dreams. Like, how is this any
Great point,
different?
Tyler. I love it.
All
I'd
of these
like to
points in
stress
one
something.
sentence persuasion, like you can use all of them. There's an exponential factor when you use all of them together where the effect is just massively exponential more effective than just using one. So I agree that using fear only, you will get people to take action for a short period of time in a higher ratio than inspiring by desire. When people are motivated by desire, they tend to have more actions consistently over a longer period of time than by fear, because fear is very tiring. People get tired of it. After a while, they lose their fear, right? But when you combine the both of them, um, you actually get a higher response rate and usually a longer period of action and execution in response to that motivation.
Yep.
You are so, I love what you're saying, Ty. I love it so much I had to pipe in again. I'm thinking of biology, brain science, chemicals in your brain. You're aligning perfectly with that stuff.
I wanted to comment on something Richard said too. And a lot of it's your choice as to how far you want to get involved in something. Richard, I worked for several years. I told you I'm a good rock thrower. I worked for several years in the criminal division of the United States Attorney's Office and responsible for convictions of several different people. And it started changing who I was. I mean, I was very distrustful of people and what they would tell me and stuff. And I had to get out of it, Richard, because I couldn't do that anymore. And like a pendulum swings too far one way, it goes back the other way. I left federal law enforcement and became a missionary. So, I think a lot of it's choices of what you choose to do, even with the skill set that you have.
Yeah.
I wonder if it might not be the elements before the throwing the rocks, but with the right elements before it, that throwing rocks at our enemies would be unnecessary. In other words, if we've elevated our dreams and understand our failures and have a way of dealing with fear, what our enemies will be inconsequential, if not irrelevant, to us.
Could be.
Think what you see in history, those tendencies you talk about, Donald, there are some animal responses. What do you do about that? Everybody's asking that question now. What the heck do we do about this stuff? Again, if you look at history, there always takes an inspiring. We also respond to leadership. I mean, you can be a mesmerizing cult leader and take advantage of your acolytes, or you can be. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel. When Kennedy did the moon thing, I've looked at his speech and they talk about it, but it was incredible aspirational speech. And I said, this is a bit of a moral decision. I think it is. What are you going to be?
Yeah.
Where are you going to put yourself as a marketer? Because learning to be, it's
And
natural to be reactive and all that, but learning to be inspiring and a leader, that you have to learn to do that. That is not as instinctive. That's something you have to put on yourself, see that, and make that moral choice.
Mhm. And in that speech, okay, and it was a very inspiring speech, but were we not throwing rocks at somebody?
Yeah, they're throwing rocks at the Russians, of course. That's funny. I'm glad you brought
Right?
that up.
Correct?
Yeah.
We were throwing rocks in a big way. And I mean, it was not just slight symbolism that we brought rocks back from the moon. Right? We didn't just bring moon dust back, we brought back rocks. Think about that for a moment.
And who was throwing them on the moon before we got there?
Hmm. Hmm. This help you guys out? I don't know.
Another,
I just yeah, go Terry.
oh, yeah, I was just gonna say another way to look at this when I see this, I mean, empathy is just staring at me. Like people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams. Empathy. You're justify their failures. Empathy. Allay their fears. Empathy. Confirm their suspicions. Empathy. Help them throw rocks at their enemies. Empathy. So that just speaks volumes to empathy. And what is the one thing that ChatGPT will not ever provide people? Empathy. Okay. Connection. So when I see this, it's huge because it's really getting to being in the mud with people as well as being in their high, when they're very successful. So it's being willing to also be in the mud with them and say, hey, you look like you could use some help. Let me help you out here. So anyway, that's my two cents on it.
I think Terry's onto something there because there's the fear-based and then there's the, more like a goal-based. And of course we say psychologically, people will are motivated by moving away from their fears rather than toward what they want. However, look at like the beer commercials. What do they show? Do they show some guy sitting in an easy chair drinking a beer with a beer gut, or do they show people out having a good time in bathing suits and just having fun, looking great? That kind of thing. There was the suit salesman there, George Zimmer from Men's Warehouse. He said, "You're going to like the way you look," and that was his thing. On the contrast, you look at the fear-based ads, like how many attorney billboards do you see up all over the place? Try to pick on or grab people that want to play the lawsuit lottery. You hear, call, Sammy and Shyster and or Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, and call and sorry, David didn't. I know. But you call them and we'll get you the most money for your injury. But you know what? Maybe people call them, but do you like those ads? Do you like the ads for title lock that scare you into buying title lock because people may come and try to steal your house by transferring the title into your name? Yeah, it may motivate you, but you don't like the person. And as coaches and as influencers, do we want people to like us? So that's my thought.
Hmm.
Well, you're
I
right,
would
Tony.
contend
I,
that
I
the
hate
party
those commercials
commercials were beer
because on the
commercials.
title lock, you can't transfer a title if it's already secured by a mortgage because you have to have release of the mortgage to transfer a title. But they don't tell the
Exactly.
people that because you can't transfer a title if there's a mortgage against it. You have to have a release of the title. You can transfer your interest, but you can't transfer the title itself. But they never say that. And I wonder how many people are buying this insurance policy that don't need it because they don't have their home paid off. It
And for
infuriates
beer
me.
commercials, I would actually contend that the partying there, you are actually creating the fear of missing out. Is
Throwing
what you're
rocks at those
actually
people
creating
who
there
aren't
too.
in, you're throwing rocks at those people who aren't in the loop to be at the
Well,
party.
you create the fear of, am I going to be excluded if I don't join in the partying? Am I going to feel pain? Am I going to miss out on the fun?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Is the
rejection
fear
from the
that's
tribe.
created there.
The tribe kicks you out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, will I face social exclusion? Will I lose my status among the cool kids?
Well, Donald,
Exactly, but they don't show that part of it. They
They don't
imply
have
it.
to.
Exactly,
It's
they
in the
don't have to.
subtext,
So they don't have to show you the negative
Mm-mm.
but
by
they still
showing
play
you
on it.
the positive. Exactly, exactly.
But they still play on it. The fear motivation is still part of the ad.
well, Donald, we are coaches. We are
Mm.
not we are not, maybe we represent tribes. I don't know. Help me translate this into action for a coach, into words for marketing, into a concept to engage in. Do you present yourself as a coach as representing a tribe? I'm part of the tribe of skinny people or whatever. Help me translate this into action, into marketable stuff.
So I think the key here is, Richard, it is digging down and doing the research, is you need to understand who are their enemies.
Wayne, I would say too, I would answer Richard, yes, I think you are part of the tribe. I think if I kind of think of some of the coaches that are kind of on this call or in the circle, when I know what their specialty is, I kind of, oh yeah, not are they just specializing in that segment or demographic, they're also part of that segment and demographic. So I think there is something where they are part of that too.
Who does not have enemies?
So what you're saying is you can represent yourself as sort of we're in the same tribe, you and I. Dude,
Yep.
we're in the same tribe. And
Yeah, I mean, Carly's a
I'm
great
an
example.
individual, rather than I'm the marketing guy, you and I are in a tribe together.
Yep. Carly's a great example. Terry's a great example. Janelle's a great example. There's a lot of great examples right on this call of people who are kind of in the part of the tribe or the demographic that they're representing. So, or they're working with.
Well, there's no way to stand for something without also standing against something. Like there has to be opposition, you know? How can you be number one in the market if somebody isn't willing to assume second and third position? There has to be an opposition for you to have a position on anything. So you can champion for good, and in opposition, somebody is also championing for something in opposition to you. Because if not, then you don't have a competitive advantage. You're all just kind of saying the same stuff. So if there is no opposition to champion against while you are championing for what's in opposition to that, then you don't stand for anything, is what I would contest. If everybody
Positive,
just says the same stuff.
positive cannot exist without negative.
Precisely. There is
Good
no
cannot,
good if there is no bad. There is no
yeah.
sweet if there is no bitter. There is no day if there is no night. There has to be everything good stands in opposition to whatever the opposite is.
I'm going to put some ribs on the smoker tomorrow. And I am going to have sweet.
To make me jealous. This is how he
Yeah,
gets
and
back
I
at
am
me.
going to,
That
and
sounds
I'm
like an
going to,
invite
with
to
the
me,
grilling.
but
it's like, I'm going to 7 hours on the smoker tomorrow. But I mean, I am going to start with sweet and spicy. You know, I mean, you can't have sweet without spicy. You can't have hot without cold. It's the whole thing. Find their enemies.
Yet hot doesn't become cold and cold doesn't become hot without some process taking place from one to the other. That's where I'm thinking. I mean, yes, those are the two extremes, but in between is what I call the ing. It's becoming hot, becoming cold, and you put the ribs on, and they're going to be a particular temperature. You probably maybe have brought them to room temperature before you put them on the fire or in the smoker, and then what's going to happen over the next hours is that's going to happen. They're not all of a sudden going to be
No.
any one of those things. Anyway.
And I'm going to have many enemies along the way, right? I'm going to, that my enemy is going to be those ribs possibly drying out on me. So I've got to be ready with my apple cider vinegar to spritz them with. I mean, does that make sense? So there's a yin and a yang. You've got to
Oh no,
find the
your
yang.
enemies are vegans.
Well, my enemies, no, my friends are vegans. Janelle and I are great friends, Richard. I would have her
Ah.
over any day because more ribs for me. I mean, I'm gonna have a fruit salad. She's gonna eat the fruit salad and you know what I mean? And probably the bean dip, and I'm gonna be gorging on those ribs. So there she's not my enemy. by any stretch of the imagination. More meat for me. I was like, you know. This help you guys out today? When I found that in the book, I says, "Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten about that." But it's so powerful, isn't it?
Eric, you talked about sort of a dichotomous way of thinking, and I think Tyler, you talked about it a little too. I might gently disagree with you. uh, you know me reading. There's a psychology now in marketing about win or loser, disruptive innovation. Well, there's a whole new philosophy of innovation that's getting really popular, which is instead of disrupting anybody at all, create a new marketplace for yourself that doesn't exist yet. You're not opposing anyone. You don't have an enemy. You don't have that dichotomy existing at all. Just go find a new spot where nobody else is standing and do it there.
That's
But
the
pretty
blue
s-
ocean,
but-
right, Richard?
But pretty soon people will stand around you and throw rocks at you.
Well, I would
Okay,
also
I give up.
I would also contend that anytime anything new comes in, it replaces something we're already doing. Email came in as something good and new that nobody uses, but what ends up happening is now we've replaced snail mail. Everything good and new that comes into our lives, ultimately it replaces something else, and that something else then becomes the opposition. So everything new ends up at minimum offsetting something else.
I'm not going there, but I love you, Tyler. We're having a discussion.
Good call today. Anthony Warren, you're very quiet, but I can see you taking this all in. Is this helping you out today?
Yeah, actually, because I was reminded of a discussion I had once about difficult conversations and seeing all the different responses. I could actually monitor what got people's attention. And one of the people who responded to was a quote I had from Rumi. And it was, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there was a field. I'll meet you there. In other words, not the field of right or the field of wrong, but this third field that's somewhere completely different. So neither party's really got the picture until you got to that, and you have to communicate on that. And the reason why I'm kind of sitting here nodding and all that kind of stuff is because my wife and I had a conversation this afternoon, which would easily be classified by most people as a difficult conversation, but we're still speaking to each other. And I'm progressing and actually learnt some things by that conversation, which we will actually use to bless other people's lives. So how to actually express that in about a 2-line sentence, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And then I looked up the Rumi quote, which is actually much longer, and I hadn't actually, there's a whole thing there, and I just sent a garbled note to Richard saying, Richard, actually, there's this quote from Rumi that would actually really reflect what you've said, and I'm seeing things that I hadn't seen before, but it's too long for me to type out here, as I'm not that fast. But if anybody's interested, I'll gladly DM me and I'll send it to you.
Excellent.
Including you, Don.
Are you going to put your contact in somewhere in the text or something like that?
Sorry?
Anthony, you going to put some kind of contact in there?
There's too much to put in. So if
just your contact in there for me, please.
Oh yeah, sure.
Would you like something very shocking as first connecting? Do you understand you were all in a private Facebook group, Donald Stojack Ask Questions? I changed the name of it. So, but all of you're all connected already in that group. For those of you.
Can you put the name of the group in the chat?
You're in the group, Maisie. I can see you in the group. It's Donald Stojack Ask Questions. I'll make sure you got it, Maisie.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm working with a gentleman in Australia right now, and he's actually Persian. He's from Iran. He's actually headed there tomorrow, and he's been doing a series of YouTube videos reading Rumi in Persian and then in English, and we've been going back and forth because he says and listening to him read it in Persian is beautiful. I don't understand a word he's saying, but it reads so well. And so we've been struggling, kind of going back and forth. Do we do a direct translation or a poetic translation to English? And that's I'm having a conversation with him later today. But I had never heard it in Persian.
Oh yeah.
And wow, you know what I mean? It's like singing. You know, there's some songs that I don't speak French, but I sing French. And when you sing them in French, oh my gosh, you're in tears. They don't have a clue what's being said, right? And then you try to sing that same song in English, and it just falls flat. And even though you can understand the English, the language doesn't transfer the what that feeling or something like that. So it's really, really powerful.
Donald, that's brilliant. Sorry, before you sign it off, I must just share a similar thought, if I may.
Please do.
Because I first came across Rumi when I was living in France. So I first read Rumi in French.
Wow.
And then I translated it into English. And this kind of stuff. And years ago, people were saying, "Oh, Rumi." I'm kind of, "Oh yeah, Rumi, whatever." And now he's like being very trendy, and to me that kind of like, whoa, that's kind of like, that's interesting, because before, oh, you know, some whatever, whereas now he's actually becoming a bit, you know, because I mean he's not a contemporary of us by any stretch of the imagination. He's sort of 13th century or something.
Yeah.
So when people start quoting Rumi, it's such a different thing. But I found it interesting that this thing I was going, I can't remember the context. That it was a business group, I think, and that was the bit that really got people going, to actually have more depth than "you're right and I'm wrong" is almost like something that really gets people's attention, and they want to do that. And I think also from a coaching point of view, if I ask a question about what you're going to do, that kind of stuff, I actually train people. They're going to give me at least 5 options. That's really hard work. Most people can only give you 2. If you say, well, actually, try at least 5. And then when they've done that, then we say, now, which do you think is going to be best? So hopefully it then helps them make a better decision and a more complete decision. I just toss that in for what it's worth.
I'm going to put the Facebook group in the chat here. Does that show up? That's the Facebook group. I think you're all in there. And if not, just join the group. That's where the action's up. Good call today. We'll kind of label this one throwing rocks. How's that? Good quotes in here today, Tom? Excellent. I always kind of lose my...
I think I've got a page worth, almost a page. Well, that's not a page worth. It's about 3/4 of a page worth. So
cool. Excellent.